It's our stories. Welcome to a world where real stories sounds like a movie script.
Have you ever hated your boss so much that you were willing to ruin your own life just to see him fall? I did. I broke into the company archives to find dirt on my boss, but instead I found my own father's death sentence. That folder held the secret to the deaths of 42 people, and I had to choose: betray my own flesh and blood or live with my hands elbow deep in filth. That's how I pulled the trigger.
Listen to me closely. If you were hearing my voice, it means I'm already gone. Maybe I'm in a cell. Maybe I'm in a ditch. Or maybe, just maybe, I'm sitting on a beach somewhere where they don't have extradition treaties. But I doubt it. Men like me don't get happy endings. We just get endings. Right now, as I speak into this microphone, I can see the flashing lights reflecting off the wet pavement outside my window, blue and red. The universal colors of game over. My phone has been vibrating for 3 hours straight. 47 missed calls, 12 from my wife, 20 from my mother, and 15 from a number I deleted from my contacts 10 years ago. My father. They want to know why I did it. They want to know how a quiet, loyal senior engineer could burn down a 50-year-old family legacy in a single night. They call me a traitor, a psychopath, a whistleblower. But I'm none of those things. I'm just a guy who finally decided to clean the basement. And when you clean a basement that's been locked for 2 decades, you don't find dust, you find skeletons. This is the story of how I destroyed my boss, my career, and my own flesh and blood. And the worst part? I'd do it again.
It started with Marcus Sterling. To the public, Marcus is a visionary. He's the CEO of Sterling & Associates, the construction giant responsible for the skyline of this city. He's on the cover of Forbes. He donates to orphanages. He has a smile that makes you want to trust him with your life savings. But I worked 10 feet away from his office for 12 years. I know the real Marcus. Marcus is a man who would step over a dying man to pick up a nickel. He's a sadist in a $5,000 suit. My name is Jack Reynolds, and I was the legacy hire. My father, Frank Reynolds, co-founded the company with Marcus back in the 80s. They were the dynamic duo, the architect and the engineer. When my dad retired, he was treated like royalty. A golden parachute, a permanent seat on the board, and a promise that his son, me, would be taken care of. Taken care of. What a joke. For 12 years, Marcus made it his personal mission to break me. I wasn't an employee. I was a punching bag he kept around to assert dominance over my father's memory. I was a senior structural engineer. I had 2 master's degrees. I knew more about load-bearing steel than Marcus knew about his own children. Yet I was still sitting in a cubicle while guys I trained were promoted to corner offices. Every day was a lesson in humiliation. "Jack," Marcus would say, walking by my desk, tapping my shoulder with a rolled-up newspaper like I was a dog. "Did you double-check the wind shear reports? We can't have you making mistakes. We know how fragile the Reynolds family can be under pressure." He would laugh, a dry, hacking sound. The whole office would go silent. They knew not to make eye contact. I took it. I swallowed the rage until it tasted like battery acid in the back of my throat. I had a mortgage. I had 2 kids in private school. I had a wife who loved the stability. And I had a father who constantly told me, "Stick with Marcus, Jack. He's hard, but he's family. Loyalty pays off." Loyalty. That word makes me want to vomit now.
The breaking point didn't come with a shout. It came with a whisper. Last Tuesday, the Titan Stadium project. This was the crown jewel, a $500 million contract to build the new city arena. I was the lead safety engineer. It was my job to sign off on the structural integrity before the concrete was poured for the upper decks. I ran the numbers. Then I ran them again. Then I ran them a 3rd time, praying I was wrong. I wasn't. The steel beams they ordered from a supplier in Southeast Asia were subpar, grade B instead of grade A. They had microfractures. Under a static load, they were fine, but add the rhythmic stopping of 50,000 fans during a concert or a dame, the resonance would snap them like toothpicks. I printed the report. I walked into Marcus's office. He was on the phone, looking out at the city view. He hung up when I entered. "Good news, Jack?" he asked, not turning around. "We pour concrete on Monday." "We can't," I said. My voice was steady, but my palms were sweating. "The steel is garbage, Marcus. If we pour, that deck will hold for maybe a year, 2 years, but eventually it comes down. It's a death trap." Marcus turned around slowly. His eyes were cold, dead, like a shark that smells blood. "The supplier is a personal friend, Jack. The steel is fine." "It's not fine. The stress tests show." "I don't care about the tests." Marcus slammed his hand on the desk. The sound echoed like a gunshot. He walked around the desk and stood inches from my face. I could smell his expensive cologne mixed with the stale scent of coffee. "You are going to sign that paper, Jack. You are going to mark it as approved, and we are going to pour on Monday." "I can't do that," I whispered. "People will die." Marcus smiled. It was the most terrifying thing I had ever seen. "People die every day, Jack. They die in car crashes. They die of cancer. It's called life. But careers? Careers die because people make stupid choices, like you're doing right now." He leaned in closer. "Think about your father, Jack. Think about his pension. Think about his reputation. If this project fails, the company stock tanks. Your dad loses everything. You want to be the one to bankrupt your own parents? Sign the damn paper." He dismissed me with a wave of his hand. I walked out. I went to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. I looked in the mirror. I saw a graying, tired man who had let himself be bullied for a decade. But behind the fear, I saw something else. A spark. I wasn't going to sign, and I wasn't just going to quit. I was going to kill him, not with a gun, with the truth.
I knew Marcus. He was old school. He didn't trust the cloud. He thought hackers were everywhere. He kept his darkest secrets on paper, locked away in the archive, a reinforced room in the basement of the old headquarters building across town. We used it for storage now, but the old records were still there. I knew he had a doomsday box. Every corrupt CEO does. A collection of leverage, blackmail material, and original records of illegal deals, kept just in case he needed to burn someone else to save himself. It was Friday night. A thunderstorm was battering the city. Perfect cover. I told my wife I had to stay late to fix the stadium report. She kissed me on the cheek. "Don't work too hard, honey." I felt a pang of guilt. If this went wrong, she would be married to a felon. If it went right, she would be married to a pariah. I drove to the old building. I had the security key card. I was the facility manager before they promoted me, or rather, sidelined me. The building was empty. Shadows danced on the walls as lightning flashed through the windows. I took the elevator down to B2. The air down there was stale, smelling of mildew and old dust. The archive door was heavy steel. I punched in the code. Access granted. Inside, rows of metal shelves stretched into the darkness. Boxes upon boxes of 30 years of construction history. I had a flashlight and a list of keywords in my head. I started digging. Hour 1, nothing. Just tax returns and blueprints. Hour 2, my hands were getting paper cuts. I was sweating. I found some minor bribery records, dinners with city council members, gifts for inspectors. Good, but not enough to bury him. I needed a nuclear bomb. Then I saw it. In the far corner, hidden behind a stack of water damage invoices from 1999, a black plastic box. It wasn't labeled with a year. It just had a single word taped to the front in red marker. Northwood. My heart skipped a beat. Northwood. If you live in this city, you know that name, you fear that name. 20 years ago, the Northwood Garden Apartments collapsed during a minor tremor. It was a tragedy that shook the nation. 42 people died. 12 of them were children attending a birthday party on the ground floor. The official investigation said it was a freak geological event. The ground had liquefied. The builder
Sterling and Associates was cleared of all negligence. My hands trembled as I pulled the box down. Why did Marcus keep a separate box for a closed case? I opened it. The smell of old paper hit me. On top was a structural analysis report, dated 6 months before the collapse. I shined my flashlight on the text. Subject: concrete density test, Northwood Block C. Result: fail. Notes: the concrete mix is over-diluted. Sand ratio is 40% higher than code allows. Structural integrity is compromised. Estimated chance of failure in seismic event is 95%. I gasped. The air left my lungs. They knew. They knew the concrete was sand. They knew the building was a house of cards. I flipped the page to the action required memo. There was a handwritten note in the margins. I recognized Marcus's jagged handwriting immediately. Too expensive to repour, use the B-grade mix, shore it up with cosmetic supports. It will hold. Murder. It was premeditated murder for profit. They saved maybe $2 million on concrete, and 42 people paid for it with their lives. I felt a wave of nausea. I wanted to run. I wanted to burn the building down right then and there. But then I saw the next document. The authorization to proceed form. This was the document that legally allowed the construction to continue with the bad concrete. It required 2 signatures from the company partners. The first signature was Marcus Sterling. Bold. Arrogant. I moved the flashlight beam to the right. There was a second signature. A signature I had seen on my report cards, on my birthday checks, on my marriage certificate. Frank Reynolds. My father. I dropped the flashlight. It rolled across the floor, the beam spinning wildly, creating a strobe effect in the dark room. No. No. My dad was the good one. That was the narrative. Marcus was the shark, Frank was the builder. My dad was the one who retired because he wanted to spend time with family. He didn't retire. He fled. I picked up the paper, bringing it close to my face, praying it was a forgery. It wasn't. I knew that loop on the R. I knew the way he crossed his F. He signed it. He signed the death warrant for 12 children. Suddenly, everything made sense. Why Marcus treated me like garbage but never fired me. Why my dad always told me to keep my head down and take the abuse. Why my dad got such a massive severance package. It wasn't a pension. It was hush money. Marcus was keeping me around as a hostage. As long as I was under his thumb, my dad stayed quiet. And as long as my dad stayed quiet, Marcus stayed out of prison. I was the collateral in a 20-year-old pact of blood and money. I sat on the floor of the archive room and cried. Not a gentle cry, an ugly, heaving sob that tore out of my chest. I grieved for the victims of Northwood, but mostly I grieved for the father I thought I had. That man died in this room tonight. The man living in the suburbs, the man who grills burgers on Sundays and teaches my son how to fish, that man is a ghost, a monster wearing a grandpa's skin. I had a choice. I could put the box back. I could walk away. I could go home, hug my wife, sign the stadium report on Monday, and become just like them. Another link in the chain. Or I could burn it all. I looked at the documents. I looked at the photos of the collapsed building included in the file, bodies covered in gray dust, firefighters weeping. I wiped my eyes. My hands stopped shaking. I took out my phone. I took high-resolution photos of every single page. Then I took the originals. All of them. I stuffed them into my backpack. I wasn't going to the police. The police chief plays golf with Marcus. I wasn't going to the media. Marcus owns the local paper. I was going to the one place where anger burns hotter than anywhere else. The internet. But first, I had to make one stop.
I had to look him in the eye. I drove out of the city, speeding towards the quiet, affluent suburb where my parents lived, the house that blood built. It was 2 a.m. I parked in the driveway. The house looked peaceful, safe. I walked up to the steps and pounded on the door. Bam, bam, bam. I didn't stop until a porch light flickered on. The door opened. My dad stood there in his plaid pajamas, squinting, looking old and frail. "Jack?" he asked, his voice thick with sleep. "What on earth? Is everything okay? Is it the boys?" I pushed past him into the hallway. "Get the mom out of the room," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, robotic. "What? Jack, you're scaring me. What's going on?" "I said, get mom out of the room now," I roared. My mother appeared at the top of the stairs, terrified. "Jack?" "Go back to bed, Mom," I said, trying to be gentle, but failing. "I need to talk to Dad, alone." She looked at Dad. He nodded, confused. She retreated. Dad led me into the kitchen. He tried to put a hand on my shoulder. I recoiled like he was radioactive. I reached into my bag and threw the file onto the granite island. The photos of the dead kids fanned out. The signed authorization form landed right on top. The silence in that kitchen was heavy enough to crush bones. Dad looked at the papers. His face went pale. Not white, gray, ashen. He didn't ask what this was. He didn't ask where I got this. He just closed his eyes and let out a long, trembling sigh. "You found the box," he whispered. "Tell me it's fake," I begged him. Even then, part of me wanted him to lie. "Tell me Marcus forged your signature. Tell me you didn't know." He opened his eyes. They were wet. "We were going bankrupt, Jack. It was the recession. If we didn't cut costs on Northwood, the company would have folded. We would have lost this house, your college fund, everything." "So you traded them?" I screamed, pointing at the photos. "You traded 42 lives from my college fund for this house?" "It wasn't an accident," he shouted back, his voice cracking. "It was a calculated risk. It was a 1 in a million earthquake. It was an accident." "It wasn't an accident. It was a gamble. And you lost." I slammed my fist on the counter. "And then you let Marcus bully me for 10 years. You let him humiliate me every day. Why? Because he was afraid he'd talk?" "He owns me, Jack. He always has. He has copies. If I stepped out of line, he said he'd send me to jail. I did it to protect you. I wanted you to have a future." "A future?" I laughed. It was a dark, bitter sound. "You didn't give me a future. You gave me a leash." I grabbed the papers back and stuffed them into my bag. Dad stood up, panic rising in his voice. "Jack, what are you doing? Where are you going with those?" "I'm finishing it, Dad. I'm doing what you were too much of a coward to do 20 years ago." He grabbed my arm. His grip was surprisingly strong. "Jack, listen to me. If you release that, I go to prison. I'm 72 years old. I will die in a concrete cell. Is that what you want? To kill your father?" I looked at him. I looked at the man who taught me how to ride a bike. The man who sat in the front row at my graduation. And then I looked at the signature on the death warrant. "You died 20 years ago, Frank. You're just a ghost haunting this house." I ripped my arm away and walked to the door. "Jack, please! Jack!" he screamed after me. I slammed the door. I got in my car. I was crying so hard, I could barely see the road. But I knew where I had to go. I drove for an hour without aim. The rain was hammering the roof of my car, drowning out the sound of my own screaming thoughts. Eventually, I pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour diner near the highway. It was 3:30 a.m. The neon sign buzzed overhead, casting a sickly red light over my dashboard. I didn't go inside. I opened my laptop. I connected to the public Wi-Fi. It was slow, but it was enough. My hands were still shaking, but my mind was ice cold. I wasn't Jack Reynolds, the submissive employee anymore. I was the executioner. I spent the next hour organizing the files. Folder A, the photos, the cracked pillars, the cheap steel, the bodies in the rubble. Folder B, the financials, the wire transfers saving $4 million, the bonuses paid to Marcus and my father immediately after the project was completed. Folder C, the smoking gun, the authorization form signed by both of them, overriding the safety warnings. I wrote a manifesto. It wasn't long. It didn't need to be poetic. My name is Jack Reynolds. I am a senior engineer at Sterling & Associates. For 20 years, my CEO, Marcus Sterling, and my father, Frank Reynolds, have hidden the truth about the Northwood collapse. They knew the concrete was defective. They signed off on it to save money. 42 people died for profit. Here is the proof. Today, I am fixing their mistake. I compiled it all into a torrent file. I sent it to the FBI's tip line. I sent it to the New York Times investigative desk. I sent it to the state attorney general. But I knew bureaucracy is slow. I needed speed. I needed mob justice. I logged into Reddit. I created a throwaway account. Concrete Truth, 1990. I went to r/news, r/true crime, and r/pro revenge. I uploaded everything. I hovered my mouse over the post button. For a split second, I saw my mother's face. I saw my kids' faces. I realized that by clicking this button, I wasn't just destroying Marcus. I was making my children the grandchildren of a mass murderer. I was making my wife the daughter-in-law of a felon. But then I thought about the 12 kids at Northwood. They never got to grow up. Their parents never got justice. I'm sorry, Dad, but you bought the ticket. Now you take the ride. Click. Posted. I shut the laptop. I leaned my head back against the seat and waited. It didn't take long. 10 minutes later, the notification started. Ding! 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 Comments were pouring in. Is this real? Holy shit, I remember Northwood. My cousin died there. This is legit. Look at the signatures. OP, you better hide. They will come for you. By 5 a.m., the post was on the front page of the internet. By 6 a.m., hashtag Sterling Massacre was trending on Twitter. By 7 a.m., my phone started ringing. It was Marcus. I watched the screen light up. Boss calling. I didn't answer. I just smiled. It was time to go to work. I showered at a truck stop. I put on my best suit. I drank 3 espressos. I drove to the office at 8:30 a.m. The atmosphere in the building was electric with panic. Usually the lobby is quiet. Today, people were huddled in corners, whispering, looking at their phones. When I walked in, silence rippled through the room. They knew. Everyone knew. I took the elevator to the top floor. Marcus's executive assistant, Sarah, was at her desk, just crying. She looked at me with wide, terrified eyes. He's inside. He's destroying everything. I pushed open the heavy oak doors to Marcus's office. It looked like a hurricane had hit it. File cabinets were overturned. Papers were everywhere. Marcus was standing by the industrial shredder, feeding stacks of documents into it with manic energy. He stopped when he saw me. He looked terrible. His hair was disheveled, his tie undone. The shark had lost his teeth. You... He breathed out. It wasn't a question. It was a curse. You ungrateful little rat! I walked over to the window and looked out at the city. It's nice view, Marcus, I said calmly. Enjoy it. The view from a federal prison cell isn't nearly as good. He gave you everything, he screamed, lunging toward me. He stopped a few feet away, his fists clenched. I kept you on the payroll. I paid your father's pension. We are family. We aren't family. I turned to face him. We are conspirators. Or, at least you thought I was. But I resigned last night. I can fix this, Marcus said, his voice trembling, shifting from anger to desperation. I have money, Jack, offshore accounts. I can give you $10 million right now. Just go online, say it was a hoax, say you forged the documents. Take the money and run. 10 million? I asked. 20 million, Jack. Think about your kids. I stepped closer to him. I saw the sweat beading on his forehead. You can't buy back the dead, Marcus, and you can't buy me. I pointed to the shredder. And by the way, shredding those won't help. I uploaded the high-res scans to the cloud. The FBI already has the link. Marcus's face went white. He slumped against his desk, sliding down until he hit the floor. He looked small, pathetic. The tyrant who had terrorized me for a decade was just a scared old man in a dirty suit. Why? He whispered. Why burn it all down? Because, I said, checking my watch, I was tired of the wait. Sirens. First faint, then loud, deafening. They were coming from all directions. I looked down at him. They're here for you, Marcus.
The FBI didn't knock. They swarmed. Agents in windbreakers with FBI in yellow letters burst through the doors. They secured the floor. They confiscated computers. I stood by the wall, arms crossed, watching the show. They cuffed Marcus. He didn't fight. He was catatonic. They dragged him out past the employees he had tormented for years. No one said a word. An agent approached me. Special Agent Miller. Jack Reynolds? That's me. We received your package. You know this implicates you as an accessory for withholding information? I know, I said. I'm ready to testify. I'll take whatever deal you offer. Just make sure they never get out. He nodded. We need you to come with us. Can I make one phone call? He'd hesitated, then nodded. Make it quick. I didn't call my wife. I didn't call a lawyer. I opened the news app on my phone. Live coverage. Breaking news. Sterling and Associates CEO arrested in massive corruption scandal. But the split screen showed another location. My parents' house. The camera was zoomed in from a helicopter. Police cruisers surrounded the driveway. I watched as two officers led a man down the front steps. My father. He was wearing the same plaid pajamas. His head was bowed low. He looked so frail, stumbling slightly on the last step. An officer had to steady him. Behind him, my mother was on the porch screaming. I couldn't hear her, but I could see her face contorted in agony. She was reaching out for him, but a female officer held her back. I felt a crack in my heart. A deep, jagged fissure. That was my dad. The man who taught me how to throw a baseball. The man who carried me on his shoulders. And I put those handcuffs on him. I watched them put him into the back of the cruiser. The door slammed shut. He was gone. I turned off the phone. A single tear rolled down my cheek. I wiped it away. I'm ready, I said to the agent.
That was 3 weeks ago. The world has moved on to the next scandal, but for me, time has stopped. I'm currently out on bail, awaiting trial. I'm a star witness, so I'll probably get probation. Marcus is being held without bail. The evidence is overwhelming. He's looking at multiple life sentences. My father is in the medical wing of the county jail. His heart is failing. The stress was too much. I tried to visit him yesterday. He refused to see me. My sister sent me a text message the day after the arrest. You are dead to us. Do not come to the house. Do not call Mom. You are a monster. My mother hasn't spoken a word to me. She sold the house to pay for Dad's lawyers. The house I grew up in is gone. I lost my job, obviously. I'm blacklisted in the industry. No one hires a whistleblower. My wife is standing by me, but it's hard. The neighbors stare. The parents at school whisper. We're moving to a different state next month, starting over. Sometimes late at night, I sit in the dark and wonder if I did the right thing. I destroyed my family. I killed my father's legacy. I broke my mother's heart. But then, I opened my laptop. I have a folder saved, not the evidence folder, a new one. It contains emails I received after the story broke. One of them is from a woman named Sarah Jenkins. Dear Jack, my son was 6 years old when Northwood collapsed. He was in the lobby. I have spent 20 years thinking it was an act of God. I blamed myself for letting him go there. Knowing that it was greed, knowing that someone is finally paying for it, it doesn't bring him back. But for the first time in 20 years, I can sleep. Thank you. I read that email every night. It's the only thing that keeps the demons away. I'm recording this video because I want you to know the truth. Not the media version, the real version. The truth is heavy. It burns. It destroys. But lies are concrete. They harden around you until you can't breathe. They bury you alive. I broke out of my tomb. I'm covered in dust. I'm bleeding, and I'm alone. But I'm free. And if you're listening to this and you're carrying a secret that isn't yours, drop it. Let it shatter. Because if you don't, it will eventually bring the whole house down on top of you. This is Jack Reynolds, signing off.
Thank you for staying with me until the end. How would you have acted in the protagonist's place? Write your thoughts in the comments. More fresh and controversial stories every day on my profile. Like and subscribe to this channel.